At least 6 dead in massive Texas crash involving over 100 cars. Officials At least 6 people are dead from a massive freeway pileup in Fort Worth, Texas, according to Fort Worth police. Over 100 vehicles were involved in the crash on I-35, and multiple people were trapped in their cars, the fire department said. 65 people were hurt in the accident, which was reported shortly after 6 a.m., authorities said. 36 people were transported from the scene, including 3 who were in critical condition, police said. Numerous patients were treated and released on scene, police said, while others left the crash site on their own but later went to hospitals. All victims assessed on scene were adults. Officials said. Fort Worth police said ice was likely a factor. Freezing rain has caused slick roads in the Fort Worth area. My heart is breaking for our community as we come to learn about the extent of the losses we are experiencing from today's accident. Our community is pouring out support. And I know that so many of you are asking for a way to help, Fort Worth Mayor Betsy Price tweeted. Right now, what Fort Worth needs most is your prayers, for the families, the injured, and the first responders. More, how to stay safe in the cold. It's been decades since 3 of the deadliest interstate accidents in U.S. history. On May 14, 1988, a drunk driver killed 27 people, including 24 children, near Carrollton, Kentucky. On December 11, 1990, fog led to an accident on Interstate 75 in Calhoun, Tennessee, killing 12 people. On November 29, 1991, a blinding dust storm sparked a crash on Interstate 5 near Coalinga, California, killing 17. Trump's COVID-19 condition was so concerning that doctors considered putting him on a ventilator. Source confirms former President Donald Trump's condition after testing positive for COVID-19 became so concerning last October that there was talk of putting him on a ventilator. According to what Trump told one person at the time. The detail raises questions about whether the former president's condition was worse than officials were willing to publicly acknowledge. A development first reported in detail by The New York Times Thursday. CNN reported in October that when Trump was flown to Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, he not only had trouble breathing, but had received supplemental oxygen. Trump definitely has had oxygen, the source with knowledge told CNN. The former president's physician, Dr. Sean Conley, waffled on the issue at the time, saying Trump is not on oxygen right now. When he was asked if Trump had received it at all, Conley would not directly answer, saying, "He has not needed any this morning, today at all." Asked if he had ever been on supplemental oxygen as part of his COVID-19 treatment, Conley said, "Right now he is not," adding, "Yesterday and today, he was not on oxygen." The New York Times also reported that Trump was found to have lung infiltrates, which occur when the lungs are inflamed and contain substances such as fluid or bacteria. Their presence, especially when a patient is exhibiting other symptoms, can be a sign of an acute case of the disease. They can be easily spotted on an X-ray or scan, when parts of the lungs appear opaque or white. The Times added that Trump's oxygen level dipped into the 80s. Conley was repeatedly evasive with reporters about his condition and whether he was on given oxygen, only telling reporters once his levels had recovered that they had never been in the low 80s. Mark Meadows, who was Trump's White House chief of staff, had gathered reporters following a rosy medical briefing delivered by Conley and told them privately, "The president's vitals over the last 24 hours were very concerning and the next 48 hours will be critical in terms of his care. We are still not on a clear path to a full recovery." As for the former First Lady's condition, Someone familiar with Melania Trump's treatment said she never took the then experimental Regeneron antibody therapy used to treat her husband. This person said it took a very long time for her to get better, but she insisted on letting the virus run its course and treated her symptoms with holistic medicines, such as herbal teas, and took nothing stronger than over-the-counter pain relievers.
New video helping investigators in search for suspects in U.S. Capitol Police officer's death. Federal authorities have narrowed to a handful the number of suspects in the death of U.S. Capitol Police officer Brian Sicknick. A U.S. official briefed on the probe said Wednesday, raising hopes that investigators can bring charges in the case. New video evidence from the U.S. Capitol on January 6 has aided the work of the FBI and prosecutors in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C. in what the official says investigators continue to view as a complicated and difficult case. One leading theory that investigators are considering is that the suspects sprayed an irritant, perhaps bear spray, that caused Sicknick to suffer a fatal reaction, the official said, and CNN has previously reported. In police audio played at former President Donald Trump's Senate impeachment trial Wednesday, officers could be heard screaming during the attack that some members of the violent Capitol mob were spraying them with bear spray. And Republican Sen. Mitt Romney of Utah told reporters Wednesday that Capitol Police officer Eugene Goodman had indicated to him that he had to breathe a lot of bear spray and tear gas and that he was nauseated. While serving on January 6, the pair had spoken during a break in the trial. Sicknick, the 13-year veteran of the police force, died on January 7, one day after he collapsed in his office after being injured while physically engaging with protesters, the Capitol Police said in a statement last month. Investigators have struggled for weeks to build a federal murder case in Sicknick's death as they pored over video and photographs to try to determine the moment when he suffered his fatal injuries. Investigators have determined that initial reports suggesting Sicknick was struck with a fire extinguisher aren't true, CNN previously reported last week. Sicknick lied in honor in the Capitol building in an emotional ceremony, and was visited by President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden and congressional leaders. More than 100 other police officers were injured in the melee last month, including at least 15 officers who required hospitalization, according to court documents. Several people have been charged with assaulting police officers in the week since, but none so far in relation to Sicknick. Prosecutors have dedicated a team inside the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office to investigate the officer's death and other officer assaults. Sicknick's death is being investigated by the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department's Homicide Branch, the U.S. Capitol Police and federal authorities. Metropolitan Police Department Public Information Officer Sean Hickman told CNN on Wednesday that the case remains under active investigation, and there is no further information available to provide at this time. Eva Malecki, a spokeswoman for U.S. Capitol Police, said the Sicknick family respectfully declined to comment. Footage featured during Wednesday's impeachment proceedings highlighted the role that law enforcement officers played during the January 6 riot in seeking to protect lawmakers from the insurrectionists. The videos included footage of officers being beaten by the rioters as well as images depicting just how close the mob inside the Capitol came to reaching lawmakers. The House managers showed security footage of senators fleeing their chamber, with Capitol Police officers between them and rioters just steps away. Impeachment managers Del. Stacey Plaskett of the Virgin Islands and Representative Eric Swalwell of California methodically walked throughout how the rioters breached the Capitol and overtook the building, attacking police officers for several hours even after lawmakers had been whisked away to safety. Swalwell concluded by showing footage of police officers being violently attacked by the rioters, including one officer screaming for help as he was pressed up against a Capitol door. The footage included a Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police officer who was violently attacked with weapons and tased by the rioters while guarding the front of the Capitol. Shell says its oil production has peaked and will fall every year. London, CNN Business. Royal Dutch Shell RDSA says its oil production peaked in 2019 and that its carbon emissions are in decline, as it detailed plans to wean itself off fossil fuels. The Anglo-Dutch company said in a statement on Thursday that it expects its oil production to decline by between 1% and 2% each year. Its total carbon emissions likely peaked in 2018, it added. Our accelerated strategy will drive down carbon emissions, said CEO Ben van Beurden. Whether our customers are motorists, households or businesses, we will use our global scale and trusted brand to grow in markets where demand for cleaner products and services is strongest, delivering more predictable cash flows and generating higher returns, he added. Shell unveiled plans in September to become a net zero emissions business by 2050, including from its own products and those that it sells, joining European rivals BP and Total in making a dramatic shift towards clean energy. The oil giants have written off billions of dollars of assets, spurred on by forecasts that global oil demand may never recover to levels reached before the pandemic. In the near term, however, Shell will continue to pour around $8 billion a year into oil exploration and pumping, it said Thursday. It plans to invest $2 billion to $3 billion annually into renewables and hydrogen, with around $8 billion to $9 billion going towards integrated gas and chemicals. Shell's aim is to build material low-carbon businesses of significant scale by the early 2030s, the company said, adding that capital spending would shift to clean energy over time. The company wants to sell twice as much electricity as it sells today by 2030, and grow its global electric vehicle network from more than 60,000 charge points today to around 500,000 by 2025. Shell said it will give shareholders an advisory vote on its energy transition plan, adding that it is the first company in the sector to do so.